Okay, I'm waiting for YouTube to click over to go live. I'm super excited about today's conversation. What can you expect when two people that legitimately nerd out on structure and systems get together? It's going to be a really great conversation. But I just want to make sure the streaming is going for it to click over. So then it just goes straight to our live. I think it's about to click on right now. And I want to make sure it should. Come on, technology. Don't fail us now. Okay, here we go. Fantastic. Alrighty. So thank you everyone for joining us today on Greeneyed Ambition. You know, on this channel, we love talking about all of the unsexy things that deal with entrepreneurship. When you want to learn your creative side of your business, you can go somewhere else. But here, this is where we talk about the things sometimes where it can be overwhelming. So today, Kanika and I, we're going to be having a conversation about the importance systems. So thank you so very much for being a yes today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So before we jump into it, tell people a little bit. And I was so happy for anyone who's watching now. Like when I sent out a newsletter saying that we're going to be doing this live, and people were replying back saying, "Oh my gosh, I love her. She has really great content." So thank you. But share for anyone that does not know who you are. Tell them a little bit about you.
Sure, sure. Well, that's good to hear too, that people like the content. Yeah, my name is Kaniqua. I'm the owner of K&T Jones Client Services LLC, and we help service-based business owners pretty much stand out online. So we offer website design services through Squarespace, as well as system setups on HoneyBook, and we're going to start offering as well too YouTube coaching to really help you go through and start marketing your business and leveraging the power of YouTube.
Fantastic. So I'm curious for you, have you always been leaning towards systems, or was it something that you just figured out that you're really strong at that? What made you get going that direction?
I think it was something where I just realized I was pretty strong in systems. And I didn't necessarily realize it from me actually doing it. It's always one of those things that I do it, and then someone comes to me and says, "How do you do that?" And I'm thinking that I thought everybody knew how to do this part,
Yes.
And that's how I started to realize that okay, this systems thing is like something, and I enjoy it because I'm intrigued by it. Like that's a hobby of mine. I'll sit on the computer and I'll go down the rabbit hole of trying to figure something out and trying to put things together. So yeah, I love it, and yeah, that's pretty much how I got started. Just actually just going through and just love messing around with stuff.
Fantastic. And I've had it where some people have said to me, systems and processes, those sound like such big words. I think everyone has a different perspective or perception of what that means. But what does a system exactly mean to you?
Yeah, so a system really, to me, is really just a tool that you can organize and structure your business or your life. Because I think a lot of times, like you said, a lot of people think the word systems, it's a big thing, but a lot of us already use systems even in our day-to-day life. Like using something like as simple as a Google Calendar,
Yeah.
it's a system that you're using. Like anytime you go through and you put your kids' doctor's appointments on that Google Calendar, you're using a system. So I think if we kind of look at it in that form, that systems are really all around us. And of course, it can get more robust as you go through and depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you just look at it like that, is all these little things that you do, they're all systems, they're all tools just to help you make your life better.
And I love that you said that because I recently saw, probably in the last week, I saw someone saying that the average business that's making a certain amount of money, they have a minimum. Oh, yes, last week we had Dallas Startup Week, and someone was talking about the different apps and tools they use. And they were saying that it's very common for the average company to be using at minimum 5+ platforms to do the day-to-day activities in their business, be it from social media to payment to websites to, all the little nuances. Is that something you would agree with? Is that something you also see true in your business?
No, I definitely agree with that. I know when I first started my business, I was using way more systems than I needed to because I was piecing together several different systems when I could have just found one system that might have been able to do a lot. But
Yeah.
I think in general, we still, as business owners, use various systems in our business, just from even what we're using right now, Riverside to
Yeah.
Stream. I mean, that's a system. So yeah, we definitely use a lot of systems to be able to do everything in our business.
Yeah, and I think too what's really important for people to understand, like, and I love that you said that, is that sometimes we think that we're piecemealing and we're saving money. And the reality is that sometimes you're actually paying more. It might be that it's $15 here, $10 here, $5 here,
Mhm.
free up until this. Now you're trying to learn how to finagle around in that system to keep it free and it's still not helping you. Have you seen that when people have even come to you for support?
Absolutely. And I was that person as well too. Like when I started my business, I started back in 2017. I didn't have a whole bunch of money. So
Yeah,
I had to go the free route and piece together a whole bunch of different free systems. And some I ended up upgrading to and paying, like you said, a little bit of money
yeah,
for contract systems and scheduling systems and invoicing systems. But a lot of times, like you said, it costs you more to kind of piece those systems together. And even if it doesn't cost you more in money, it costs you more in time.
yeah,
So you're paying somewhere. So you're going to pay extra money or you're going to pay in your time.
yeah,
Either way, you're going to end up paying. So a lot of times it's best to look around and try to invest into a system where you can find a lot of the components that you are going to be using in your business. Try to go through and do that to actually go through and streamline everything, have everything all in one place. And a lot of times you're going to find that it is going to save you time and it's going to save you money in the long run.
yeah. I agree wholeheartedly because I remember years ago when I started like my event business, I remember using Microsoft Word for invoicing. Oh my
Oh,
goodness. It was,
okay.
and it would be so frustrating because all it would take is one line being wrong. Now, and I've already moved on to doing the next invoice. So now I have to retype that whole invoice all over again. Make sure I don't make the mistake that I did make, unless you're going to
Yeah.
send every invoice, depending again on the volume of someone's business, it will not make sense to be having, 150, or because everyone doesn't convert, and that's just the nature of business, to have a hundred
Hmm.
Google, Microsoft Word documents from invoices just so that if someone changes something, you have it. But then even still, you're then managing. Have I got paid? I mean,
Yeah.
so like all of those things, when we talk about time, it starts to add up because the time that it takes to check and, double check and verify if you've been paid, but now on top of that, because you use Microsoft, now you have to figure out how am I going to get paid.
Yeah. How
All
are you
those.
going to send the contract? You're having to do all of that. You're
Yes,
having to do all of that.
yes, and it can be very interesting. So, in your opinion, like, why is it crucial for success for a service-based business to actually have a system?
Well, number one, it's going to save you time. I think that's one of the biggest things because most of the clients, like for example, that I work with, they are solopreneurs or they're business owners that have small teams. And we really don't have a lot of time to waste on doing this whole back and forth, creating something here, creating something there, because we're trying to bring in business. We're trying to bring in more leads into our business. And we don't have time to do all of those little mundane tasks. So it's important to be able to save yourself some time, but then also too, you can start to streamline everything once you have everything into place, right? I always like I tell my husband all the time, like customer service, I feel like is like nowadays downhill. I mean, it's ridiculous how customer service is. Like, if you can actually have good customer service, you're going to be winning over your competition.
Yeah.
And so, if you have a system that's in place and it looks professional, you're going to be able to win over way more clients than that person that doesn't. Because a lot of times it's not necessarily like the end product that people remember,
Yeah,
they remember the experience.
yeah,
Like, so many people could do the exact same thing that you do,
yeah.
but the experience is what they're going to tell people about. They'll be like that, if it's like she did good on that event, but
Hmm.
girl, she was organized. I had to keep calling her about this, that, and the other because she was doing things wrong. It was taking her forever to send me that invoice.
Yeah,
That's what they're going to tell people.
yeah, a hundred
So,
percent, 100%. Because I remember my aunt had to do this big thing for her industry, and she had paid some um, luxury event planner to do this whole production for her. And I think at the end of the day, may have spent like 30,000 and 20, a lot of money on this event. And she was
Mhm.
like, I will never refer this person. She's like, it was a horrible experience. They weren't organized. I'm like, for that person, I'm like, well, I made the 30,000, but if someone paid you that, obviously their circle of influence is willing to pay that. So if
Mhm.
you don't do, and you may, as anyone is listening, even if your business doesn't have a $30,000 service, even if it's a $300 service or a $3,000 service, if we're not communicating effectively, efficiently, you can get people to spend money with you once, but how are you going to continue to get them to spend money with you? And it comes down to just what you were mentioning, is about how you are communicating with them and how you're making people feel through the process of working with you.
That's important too, that people do understand is like you just said, you can get people to pay you once, but the objective is to get people to pay you several times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is that next thing that you can upsell them to keep that customer doing business with
Yeah,
you? And of course, depending on your services, it's not going to be every client. They're not going to, all of them are going to come back.
yeah,
But your goal should be, how can I get them to come back and buy something else? Because it costs way more money to try to obtain a new client than
yeah,
it is to have someone purchase something from you that's already purchased something. So you want to kind of keep those clients near and dear so you can upsell them to something else, as well as too, if they have a good experience, they're going to be the mouthpiece that's going to tell their family and their friends
yeah,
what good of a job that you did, as well as the experience in bringing people to you that way. That way, all the marketing that you're doing, you don't have to work so hard to
yeah,
be able to go through a market. You have your past clients helping you do the work.
yeah. I love that you said that because I think that sometimes can be an area of growth for entrepreneurs, small business owners, is sometimes we're so focused on churning people, then how do I nurture as well? Because always churning is exhausting. Because even for those of you, that are in the event industry, and we're in this conversation, like I'll talk to wedding professionals. I'm like, so for the rest of your life, unless someone's a professional getting married person, that means that you will always have to churn. I'm like, if you might not market that I can help you with your baby shower, your anniversary, your special event. However, how are you going to get it so that they're not only hiring you for one time? Because they're going to go to someone else for all of those other things. But if all you do is talk to them about wedding, 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 that means that you have this sales funnel that's really big at the top because the nature of business, you have a whole bunch of leads that trickle down. You get them into the funnel, they pay you, and now there's this ginormous hole that they
Hmm.
actually came through at the bottom because we're not learning how to re-engage people so that they can work with us again. Because as you mentioned, it does make it easier for you to grow and scale when you have people that are acting as essentially like your agents for growth because you made them feel good about the process of working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like in so many different scenarios, there is that next level. There is that upsell. Like you said, even with, I had a consultation call before with a photographer, and she's a wedding photographer. And it's like, okay, after you do your pictures for wedding photography, you can put them inside of your honeybook to follow up with them a few months before their anniversary day to say, hey, let's do anniversary pictures now, right?
Right.
And that's the next way of how you can go through and upsell them into now purchasing something else from you
Yeah.
and getting their business as well. So, yeah, I think a lot of us, I know early on, even myself in business, didn't think about that final stage. Like you said, you offboard them and it's like, okay, they're offboarded, that was good. Let's go to the next one. But it's like, oh, let me now offboard you and then say, hey, this is what's next for us. Or let me follow up to see what's your next need? What is the next thing that I could do for you to be able to help you in your business?
I love that. Yes. So, in your experience, what are some of the common challenges people face when it comes to implementing a system?
I think most people that I've come across that I've heard is they're overwhelmed
Mm,
with getting started. They have no clue where to start. And it sounds simple enough just to say, just start, but that's really what it is. is just to start. Start with one thing. Just
Yeah.
start with one thing. Take one thing that you want to just have off your plate. So like typically, like I tell people, like when if you don't have a system in place when someone inquires for your services, just set up one automation of having an email when they inquire to say, thank you for your inquiry. This is the next steps or whatever. You just did one thing.
Yeah.
And now you were able to basically let that client know that that contact information, it was received. They have the next steps, whether that's book a call or look at our brochure. They have those next steps and they know what to do. If you can do that one thing, that's a win. And
Yeah.
then just go through and build it out from there. So I think people think about all of these things because systems are a lot. They're your CRM system, they're your productivity, they're your communication systems. There's so many systems can
Yeah.
get deep. But I think people see systems as a whole and then they don't make any movement just because it's overwhelming because there's so many things that you can do.
Yeah.
And so then people typically just don't take action at all.
No, I love that you say that to focus on at least that one thing because it's very true. And I think sometimes what happens is that people aren't present to the fact that they are doing so many things in repetition, but they don't take the time to always just think about what are the things that they're doing. So when it comes to even implementing a platform, it's like I always say you cannot put confusion into anything computer based. Like that's just not
Mhm.
how it works. So I feel that even when someone feels that way, by sitting down and taking the time to think about like what are the steps that need to happen for this thing, it probably will even give a little bit more clarity and confidence in what they do compared to each and every
Mhm.
time a client, I'm sending different messages, I'm sending them all these different things. And that alone can be stress inducing just to have to keep reinventing the wheel each and every
Every
time
time. Yeah.
just to get paid. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very valuable too. It's like you said, it's just writing it down. Write down what it is that you do each step. And then that allows for you to be able to go through that. Okay, so now I'm sending the same email out every single time. Let me create a template for it.
Yeah.
I'm having to create this same invoice every single time. Let me create an invoice template for it. And how can I put these things together? So like you said, really going through and just writing down the things that you do for onboarding. What do you do for when kicking off the project? What do you
Right.
do for offboarding? And just writing it all down. You just write it down on paper, or you can also use systems if you want to,
Yeah.
like I do. But yeah, just writing it down on a piece of paper doesn't have to be anything.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Awesome. So, like, what type of systems, like, you just went over some of the different things, but like, what are some examples of systems that every service-based business should?
Yeah, so one I think is going to be client management. So having a way that you can manage your clients. That's going to be from going through and doing invoices, contracts, it could be communication, brochures, anything like that, emails, whatever. It should be a client management system. That's going to be where you and your client can actually go through and you can get all of that nitty gritty stuff. You can kind
Mhm.
of get that done. So client management. Also think financial management system.
Mhm.
Having a way to manage your finances. Now, sometimes me and Jesse, we use HoneyBooks, so you can also have your finances done there, and then you can connect like your QuickBooks or whatever. But having some type of financial management system is also going to be important as well too. Like how are you keeping track of your finances? So you can use like a QuickBooks or Wave or FreshBooks or whatever having that. So client management, financial management, and then also I believe productivity, some type of
Mhm.
productivity system. Like how are you doing your day to days, like your actual work as a service provider?
Yeah.
So that could look something like, and there's a lot of them out there. I used to use Trello. I was a Trello fan for years, but now I just recently, within the last couple of months, I switched to Asana and I love it. So I use Asana. And so that's where we actually manage the project itself inside of Asana. That breaks down all your tasks. This is how we do the actual website design. This is task, task, task. Having some type of project management tool. And then I would also say communication. So if you have a client management, sometimes communication can fall within there. You can also do communication depends on how you're using it inside of Asana or like system, but still having some way where you can manage the communication with your, your clients, with, freelancers, whoever else that you're working with. I would say those would be like the overarching systems that every service-based business should have in their business. And it's not about using like what me and Jesse use. It's just about finding those systems that work for you within those particular topics, within those particular
Friends.
system titles or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, wholeheartedly. And especially my event friends. We need to be using something for financial management. Like I see during the bags, the bags. And I'm like, for $20 a month, you could have saved the time, easily snapped the photos, and then write off the $20 that you're paying
Yeah.
just so it would go smoother. So I always recommend, I don't care what platform you're going to use, but you need something that tracks your mileage and you need something that keeps track of your expenses. Because especially in the event space, we have so many little things that we're purchasing for each and every event. And those things,
Hmm.
you lose your deductions. Like there's legal ways to not have to pay as much in taxes. It's not hiding your money. It's learning what's going to help you
Yeah.
with getting the just amount of deductions that you need. So I'm glad that you put it into those pillars. And I think that that's so important for us to talk about. Alrighty. So then the next question that I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, for a new business that's starting, what would be the very first? We actually did say that in client services. Like, so their client, well, no, inquiry. What would be the first platform, or what would you recommend for a service based business, the first one that they should want to tackle?
Which system type should they tackle?
Yeah.
The client. I think the client management, because I feel like the other systems they're really irrelevant if
Yeah.
if you don't have any clients. Like you don't need financial management, communication if you're
Yeah.
not making any money because you don't have any clients anyway. So
Yeah.
productive, not, all of that is not. So yeah, I would say having a way that you can manage your clients and have it where everything is in one place.
Yes.
Everything is one place. You're not having to go through, your clients aren't having to go through and shuffle around. And I know it's not from a point of just saying because like we're not saying this stuff because it's like, oh, we know it all or anything like that. This is just from our experience of us going through. I know, especially with myself, of not being organized. And I know how it is not to be organized and have everything everywhere. That contract that you have to look for in Google Drive and all of that stuff. Like you don't have to do all of that if you just had a client management system that houses everything that you need that you need. Did
Yeah.
you see, by the way, did you see that I see that Honeybook even has a beta that gives you the what is it? The
Yes.
meeting
No.
summaries before. I
Yeah.
said, oh, that is because when I'm about to go on to meetings, I always have to go back through and look at the forms. And I'm like, that is so good that they have the meeting AI now that will
Yeah.
give you the summary before you jump on the call, what you need to talk about. So I thought that was nice. I said, okay, I'm using that.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for, like, I love how on different times of our conversation today, you've mentioned time, and I don't think that we realize how much of our time is really truly valuable. Like, I think that we can hear some of the personal development where, like, I can't speak to your age, but I can speak to mine. At 43 years old, I am not trying to hustle until the wheels fall off. So every
Yeah.
second that I have, I want to make sure that I'm either doing an income producing activity or something that's moving things forward. And so by using the right types of systems, you really truly do feel like at the end of the day, like, I don't know if you can test this, but sometimes you get at the end of the day, you're like, man, I got a lot done. And it's not because it's,
Yes.
I think that we can confuse busy with being productive or efficient. Those are
Mhm.
two different things. You can be busy all day long and did nothing.
And did nothing. Yes. And did nothing. You're looking like, what did I accomplish today? And it's like, I was at my computer the whole day, but it doesn't seem like I got a check mark on anything.
Exactly. Exactly. So understanding how a system really does tie into your productivity inside of your business. So for you, how can, or what's your, the question I have is how can you measure your success, your system success? Because I think too, people think you set it and forget it. And the reality is that doesn't happen, you know, because as your business grows and different things, that changes. So like what are some things to look at to know if it's actually working effectively?
Yeah, so actually, just to speak to two things. So, one of the things, kind of going back to the comment about the time really quickly, is like if you don't know how much time you are spending on certain things, I would recommend to start tracking your time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always track my time. I use a free tool called Toggle, and I track everything that I do. So, if you believe, because sometimes we'll be working on stuff and we think that it didn't take us that long, and then an hour and a half later, we're still working on it.
Yeah.
So I would recommend just start going through and tracking your time because then you'll be able to get a report at the ends of the week and whatever, and you can kind of look at it. And once you start seeing, oh goodness, I spent 30 minutes on creating an invoice, or I spent 15 minutes sending out the same email that I send out to everybody, then you will also be able to see like, oh, okay, yeah, now I do need a system. So start tracking your time, and that will give you some insight as to where you're actually spending your time each and every week and where you can actually make adjustments. As far as success, so like you said, when you're using systems and especially with automation, a lot of times people do think that they can just go through and set it and forget it. And that's honestly not really the case. So what I recommend is when you do set up like a system or an automation, is look at how your clients or how your leads are responding to what you have set up.
Mhm.
Because what you think might work, when you start seeing people go through your process or go through your automation, if enough people aren't getting to the next step, that means there's some type of disconnect
Mhm.
between it. It means that you need to see, okay, is that email, maybe is it too long? Or maybe what you're asking them to do, maybe a lot of people just don't want to do it. You
Yeah.
want to kind of look at what is going on. So, like, for example, I can say this even for myself is because, like, at the beginning of the year, what I would do is because I'm like, oh, even though our prices are on our website, we actually just redid our HoneyBook services and we just redid that page just this week. But what we were doing was we were sending out a brochure. Somebody was inquiring on our website and we would send out a brochure so they could see the services, check out the services and whatnot, and then book the call. But what I found was a lot of people weren't doing that, and I was going through and seeing that they weren't opening the brochure, and I would just send them the link to book the call. So going through and making those adjustments when I'm seeing that, okay, a lot of people aren't doing that. So it's a couple things. Maybe the brochure is just too long for them and they don't want to go through the brochure.
Yeah.
So cutting the things, you have to really just kind of look at how are your people responding to what it is that you have set up
Yeah.
and then make adjustments from there.
Yeah, no, I love that you one mentioned about Toggle. I use another platform. It's a free 99. Like there's some really great free ones. And one of the
Hmm.
things that the reason why I brought this up is because when I use that, for some reason, I'm a lot more effective. And the day is something about seeing the countdown of like, you spent
Yeah.
31 minutes, 26 seconds to complete, and it's just counting down. So I think I've become more in ownership of the time that I'm using to
Hmm.
complete things. Because what happens is that when we're not using that, and do I use it every day? No. But when I notice that tasks that don't really take me that long is taking me a lot longer, I like to have that available so then I can start to be present. Like, oh no, like this is how you get things done more effectively and efficiently. And I think when it comes to even tracking your time, it's really important to understand like what are your triggers. I feel that with being a business owner, it's important to understand how to regulate yourself as well. So when it comes
Hmm.
to like myself personally, I know when I'm avoiding things, it takes me longer. And am I avoiding it for any like in my head, I'm like, man, it's gonna take me hours to complete this.
Yeah.
You whomever's watching may be the type of person like, oh, I get jazzed up and I just do things fast. Sorry, I am not that girl. Like I will look at it, make it sound like it's gonna take 10 times longer than what it really will take. And I'll be like done in like 15 minutes. It's like I thought this was gonna take me 3 hours. So you
Good
have to
thing.
know how to like almost Jedi mind trick yourself. And that's really the key to entrepreneurship, because we all have certain ways of reacting to stress, to do lists, to tasks. I know some people that love confusion, and I was like, I would be on the corner of the floor crying if I had to deal, and like, if I know what I have to do today, I can just get through the list compared to just having random
Yeah,
arbitrary things. So it's important for us as business owners to understand what type of structure we're really truly needing so that we can have success. So I love that you mentioned about the toggle. I use clock. If it's free and it's going to tell you it's taking you too long to do some of the things you need to do, like that's what you need to take
exactly.
heed of.
And I think too, like when you track your time, not to kind of go off on it, but even too, what happens when you track your time, depending on what type of services that you are offering, especially for new businesses, it's good to track your time because if you're not really sure about how much you should be charging
Oh
for
yeah.
something, knowing how much time you're spending on said thing, like if you're doing websites, even though we charge for the project for websites, but we still need to know how long it takes us to do a website because
Yeah.
that's also going to have us in the back of the mind like, okay, it makes sense to charge this amount for the project because it takes us this amount of hours to be able to do it as well on the average website as well too. So it does kind of help you, especially if you're newer, to kind of get a gauge on how long it's taking me to do. And like I said, I've been in business for 7 years and I still track my time because I still want to know how long it takes me to do everything.
No, I think that's so key that you said that, especially for new business owners as well. Because like I've seen some of the event Facebook groups and things like that, and someone's like, "Oh, I charge this amount of time." I'm like, that probably took you like 10 hours. Like you're thinking, I just made under $1,000, like whatever it is. And I'm like, my gosh, you just the setup of that took you hours. Not to mention all the
Mhm.
phone calls you had to do, like all the touch points. So then at the end of the day, it would have been better and not have the stress because we're
Yeah.
not aware of how long it's really taking us to complete things. And I think that that's something really important for those of us in the event space, because I know I've seen where people are doing these full installations and they're making $300. And I'm like, well, that tells me you don't know how long it's really taking you. And then plus the
Yeah.
supplies, so
Yeah.
that means that you can't ever hire anyone. Because if you hire someone and you're already undercharging, that means that you just will continue to do everything yourself because there's not any buffer to really even pay anyone.
Fire. And a lot of these apps I know with Toggle, and I'm pretty sure with Clockify as well. Like you say, if you're in the event space, you're out and about. These things you can download the app on your phone and it
Yeah.
track it while you go, turn it off while so yeah, tracking your time. And again, that's a system as well that you're putting in place into your business, into your life. So yeah, so systems having that is going to help you all the way around the board with everything that you got going on.
Yes. And so I do have one last question, which I think will
Mhm.
be something that people will find very helpful. Is I feel that automations can sometimes be scary to people and feel like it's just a big thing. But how can automation be leveraged for a service based business to actually be more productive in their business?
Yeah, so I think automation is key. It's huge to be able to, you can book a client depending on the services, of course, in your process, but you can literally book a client, have them pay invoice for you, and you never have to touch anything,
Yeah.
right? So the power in having to do that, again, I keep saying time because it is about time. Time is money, in the grand scheme of things when you're a business owner. I mean, that's just how it is. So being able to leverage those automation tools and not just automation, well, systems in general, systems, automation, AI, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But being able to go through and leverage that is really going to help you in really be able to go through and help you in your business. And a lot of times, again, it's not about trying to automate all the things. Because if you
Yeah.
think about all the things that you can automate, you're going to get overwhelmed because there's so many things that you can automate. You can literally automate it where the even with your finances, you can have your bank account hooked on to QuickBooks or Wave, and all those finances and that financial information go there automatically. That's part of automation as well, too, right? Having
Yeah.
that connected. So it can get deep but I would just start with just a few things. I always tell people start with the thing that gives them the most pain.
Hmm.
Start with that first. I'm the type of person, what is that phrase? Like eat the frog? Is
Yes.
that what it's called? Like eat the frog. That's what I do. Let me just go ahead and get the worst thing done first.
Yeah.
And then I can work on all the little things later. So that's kind of the advice that I give. But if that's too overwhelming, start with something so simple and then build it out from there. But again, going through and writing it out first, because you can't just kind of really jump into automation, right? You have to know where you're going. So have that goal, that end goal in mind, like what exactly do you want to accomplish, and then work your way backwards.
Yeah.
Start with what do I want to achieve? What's the end result? And then start writing it down. Okay, this is what I need to do, step one, step two, step three, to be able to get to that goal. And then you can go through and automate your systems and your processes from there. But don't get overwhelmed by doing everything, because you're not going to do everything in just a day, 2 weeks, or nothing like that.
I love that. So for you then, if anyone wants to connect with you, what's the best ways to communicate and connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to our website. It's katiejonescs.com. You can connect with me there. I am on Instagram. It's underneath my name, kaniqua.luter. It's underneath my name there. I'm not as active there, but I am supposed to be posting in my stories every single day. So I have been hanging out in stories every day for the last like 2 months. But yeah, you can connect with me there. Have a YouTube channel, which is also under my name. So you can check me out there as well too.
Fantastic. So I will also make sure for those of you that are watching the YouTube to tag her in the description and all of her contact information. So thank you so very much again for being a yes and doing this
Yeah,
live chat.
no problem. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. All right, so I'm going to end the stream.